even when we're not. And whoever's hard clicking, cut that shit out. All right, welcome to another edition of Last Newsdesk on the Left, episode 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Non-zero episodes, what?
Yeah. So apparently YouTube has set things up so that there is no longer a start stream button. It just, fuck it, it's there. As soon as
Fuck
you
it,
hit
we're
the
doing it
software,
live.
boom, you're in it.
YouTube,
So anyway,
YouTube rolling out a shitty update never happened in the history of YouTube.
Alphabet.
Yeah. All right, so I'm Mac Paladin, host of this hopefully not train wreck. There's not a ton of news to cover this week, but as evidenced by the title and the description of our stream tonight, there is some minor items of note. We talked about the Supreme Court last week, and Senator Lindsey Graham, of course, is even further embattled than he was 5 minutes ago, apparently. And yeah, so there's a lot going on. Hope you have a good show, but of course, with me in the studio is Adam.
Hello.
And then we got Petty Fan on tech.
I did not, in fact, die.
That's a story we'll tell in a minute. Look, Alex.
Yes, I am present.
Kevin DeGrusing is here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. And Twilight Winter.
Yo.
Fresh back from the commode. We salute you, Commodore.
Sorry about that.
Will this be
We
the
will not be getting
65th
into
Commodore?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just for that, just for the record, we will not be getting into that.
Mm-hmm.
Now is that the rank that's just below Rear Admiral, or is that just one who commodes?
Commodious commode.
Or is it the smell? Or is it the smell of a commode? Because you could do a nice portmanteau.
Remember when I said we weren't going there?
Yeah.
Yes, let's move, please.
Yeah, you actually have to steer the conversation away from the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anytime we have interrupting Cal this week, it'll be thank you, Senator Graham. I feel like we should just have like a gif of a cow now on the screen.
Do you really want this?
Cow?
Go right ahead.
Though,
Okay.
I mean, if we want to get into the serious talk, I think I know what we can highlight this week. Because, so, if you've been hearing a popular refrain this year, it's ignore the polls. You know,
Right.
which has actually been a refrain for a couple of years now. Heard that during the 2018 midterms. You know, ever since the disaster, I've been, it's been, ignore the polls, vote.
Yeah.
I think this is a good time to actually talk about polling data and how the 2020 election is differing from the 2016 election.
Yeah.
Because, a lot more analysis has been done on the 2016 election since that occurred. And one of the things that's come out is the polling was actually a lot closer than what most people thought.
Right.
It's like, turns out like Hillary's numbers just were never all that good, especially in battleground states. And that combined with, with a lead that was actively narrowing. And then you get, you got the Comey letter, and that's all she wrote. To put a condensed version here. So the 2020 election, pretty much all the polling has been showing that Biden's ahead, let's say 8 points nationally.
Yeah.
And, he's ahead in most of the battleground states. if not all of them. If
Yeah.
and he's like, we got things like Iowa and Georgia in play, Arizona's in play.
Ohio's in play.
Yes, we're having big swings in red states towards
Yeah.
Biden. Not enough where he can win them, but we're talking double digits, which is actually data that's congruent with what we saw in the 2018 midterm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's just everyone's so shell shocked still from the 2016 defeat.
Yeah.
They're still thinking that the polling, the science, the data doesn't matter.
Right. Or more like they just fear that it might be wrong, and they want to make sure that fear that it'll be wrong in a massive way, especially considering the pandemic and
right.
all
Now-
of the wonkiness of this election it's going to be. So,
And to factor in that fairly, none of the polling, none of the data has ever suggested that Biden is 100% going to win.
mm-hmm.
There is a non-zero chance that Trump may win. But the data doesn't support him having a good chance of winning. That is what is being said here. It's also, I think people are looking at the wrong data right now.
Yeah.
Because the surest sign to me that Biden is going to not only win, it's going to be a landslide, and it's going to be, we're going to get the Senate as well. We're going to get the trifecta. And that's
Right.
because the early voting data we've been getting.
Although I would suggest that that early voting in person isn't available everywhere yet.
No. But the numbers, once again.
But there has been a substantial rise in early voting that we've had so far. But Florida doesn't start until I think this weekend.
No, Florida's already started early voting. I have
In person?
participated.
Okay.
In person, that is next week. Or
Yeah.
That's what I was
If I
talking
wanted to.
Yeah.
If I want to, if I want to early vote, I have to drive all the way up to Phoenix.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna see. I'm not
Which
anticipating.
again, it's kind of fucked that they're making it that not even that they're making it hard, but there's so much of a division about how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
that didn't always be. That wasn't. Always,
I was in the middle of a sentence there.
Sorry, sir.
Anyway,
I was gonna say that I'm not terribly worried about it since my actual polling place is in a 55 and over community. I'm not anticipating a lot of people being there.
Yeah. Although maybe you might be wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. The early voting numbers are really, really up, and they're skewing Democratic. Just data that came out today. Florida's early voting tallies have come out, and the Dems have a significant edge. Now, there's still waves of Republican votes to come in, but early voting in Florida is usually an edge towards the Republicans. In fact, it was the Florida Republicans who really innovated on vote by mail, believe it or not, because that helped them back in the day.
Well, yeah, because you want to get all the old people who can't leave their houses easily.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's actually a lot of this stuff is in red states, because a lot of rural areas, a lot of people who can't necessarily get to the polling place, and the Republicans want those Republican votes. Obviously, when it comes to other votes, they're less interested in having those votes count.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this whole voting irregularity thing goes, because I'm tired of so-called comedians like Bill Maher. By the way, I believe we should get this out in the open right now.
Yeah.
As far as liberal commentators go, I have never been a giant fan of Bill Maher because he's got old man foot in mouth syndrome.
I'll say this right now. He is to right now what Dennis Miller was after 9/11 in terms of his satirical comedy.
Yeah.
Nobody likes it. It's outdated. It's very much code-filled, if you will.
Right.
You know, he's just not funny anymore, and yet he's still got a contract renewal this year for some ungodly reason, even though John Oliver kicks his ass.
Like, he's still got an audience, clearly. Like, there's just like,
I mean, he says stuff I agree with from time to time, but a broken clock is also right twice a day.
Yeah.
You know.
Honestly, I've never really judged Bill Maher, even when I was watching him, like, during the Bush era. A lot of it was the Islamophobia.
Yeah.
Right. But
I mean,
there was a point.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was a point to what I said, and that is that I'm sick and tired of so-called liberals like him giving oxygen to basically give Trump ideas, talking about how he can use his campaign, how his campaign managers is trying to influence electors in these states, state officials to decertify the election so it can go to the House where they have a 1-point lead in delegations. You know, I mean, this whole fucking thing is ridiculous. It's like, if just enough states drop out. And it's like, well, that's great. Let's just give them ideas while we're at it. Let's say, hey, Mr. Trump, here's a great way that you can fuck the election legally. Just get these states to decertify their elections, and then never mind the fact that they can't selectively invalidate ballots. I don't know how the fuck they would do that. Well, there was irregularities in the presidential voting, but the Senate and the House and all the propositions and the local stuff, that's all
if a ballot's out, it's out.
Of course, the thing about that concept is that, especially considering that that's the stuff they've been talking about in Pennsylvania, they have to actually change the election law first before they can do anything of that nature. And there's a little thing called the governor, who is a Democrat.
Yeah.
And they do not have a veto-proof majority. So, I mean, that's a concept you can throw out there, but there's no way it's going to happen. Especially if the margin is outside of a recount variety.
Right. It's just amazing to me that people are giving oxygen to this stuff. It's like the other day where it's like, hey, you know what? Here's a great idea. So we impeach Trump, right? And then we install Pelosi as president because we get rid of Pence too. And then Pelosi nominates Hillary Clinton as her vice president. And then Nancy retires, and then Hillary gets 4 years, and I'm like, none of that is how that works.
Yeah. Well, Well, actually,
and that's on top of people like
that's a pipe dream.
And you got to find people who like agree that they want friggin' Hillary Clinton and or Nancy Pelosi and or whoever is president.
Keeping in mind, this was when the impeachment trials were going on, and people were saying this, and I'm like, why in the world would Nancy want to be president?
Hello, Mac.
Nominate Hillary Clinton as her vice. Hi. Hey, are we there?
Okay, you dropped for a second.
Yeah, for some reason Siri decided to come up.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Anyway, but what I was getting at was, why in the world would Nancy want to be president for about a year and then nominate Hillary so that way Hillary could get a token 1-year presidency?
Yeah.
That's just insane. I think people actually think that had Trump been impeached, whoever was appointed to the presidency in line of succession would just magically get a new 4 years. And I'm like,
there are rules about how much more you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like civics has failed us all. It's like, you do understand that there is a 10-year maximum clause in the 22nd Amendment, I believe it is.
Yes.
Because that includes
term limits in the first place.
Yeah, that would determine, like, if less than 2 years, then you would be able to run for 2 full terms afterwards, but no more than. And more than 2 years, then you can run for one term, and
Yeah.
And also
And
getting
maybe-
into the psychology of like, well, so if that happened, then so why would the person not just wanna, like, if you want Hillary to be Clinton, there's got to be a reason for Hillary to be president. She is Clinton.
if you wanted to be the Clinton,
If you want her to be the president, there has to be like a goal, like a purpose for that.
Machadid.
Mhm. And of course, the idea with that hypothesis is that Pelosi would pick Hillary to begin with, and Hillary would accept it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just absolute
There's no
ludicrousness.
guarantee. Yeah.
Anyway, we were talking about election law.
Yeah, we were.
That just struck me as one of the most insane things I've heard next to
Mhm.
Trump stealing the election by invalidating all the ballots. And I'm like, so you want to make sure that there's also no senators, no legislators,
Yeah.
no governor turnover, no
Yeah.
propositions, and also no House of Representatives.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's a
make
great
no mistake.
idea.
Granted, Republicans have been resorting to some absurd levels of fuckery this season.
Fake boxes in California.
Yeah. Why are people not being arrested over this? I mean, I know why, but still.
Also, why the fuck are they putting them in their gun stores and not like abortion clinics or something?
Well, if they put them in gun stores, that means that they get their voters, which, hey, fine by me if those are invalidated.
I mean,
Right?
but
They're
it's
throwing
like
in
note
the
to
mouths
the
of alligators.
note to the Attorney General of California: if you want to stop the Republican Party of California from having unauthorized ballot boxes, you have to do something.
Of
You
course,
know-
doing something would be politically explosive, even in a national sense, because it'd be like,
I mean,
look at the big bad Attorney General of California arrested Republican leaders.
It doesn't
mean,
even
has-
necessarily have to be an arrest. You confiscate the boxes. You issue a fine. You do something. It's
right,
like,
and
law without actual enforcement behind it isn't really law.
yeah, and what gets me is I feel like that at no time in my adult life, which we're now going on 25 years now, at no time in my adult life has any real prosecution of major note actually happened for crimes at the state or federal level. Like I've heard some people resign. It's a great tweet that I saw said something to the effect of it's really interesting that we hold each other to standards here. The Republicans can do criminal activity and get away with it, but the Democrats are held to standards. And like, for example, when Al Franken resigned. But the C Street gang continues to roam free.
I mean, even when it's the same crime.
Yeah.
Or misconduct. A lot of the time when it's a
or-
sexual
or-
misconduct
or a-
thing on
or
the
a
Republican
crime-
side, they just say, Jesus forgives, so I'm going to stay in office.
Or let's put it more to the point. The C Street gang did what they did while in office, which should have been an impeachable offense. What Al Franken did, he did before he was a senator, wasn't actually even a crime, did not actually even assault anyone. It was merely the implication for a joke. And he fucking resigned under pressure from the Democrats. Why doesn't anybody pressure Republicans to resign, ever?
Because white people have a different set of standards for Democrats than they do Republicans. Period.
Well, it's also Democrats in general have different standards than Republicans.
No,
You know-
it's honestly the white electorate overall. Because not just
Yeah.
Democrats. It's moderates will treat Democrats differently from Republicans because Republicans throw the God card and wrap themselves in the cross, and pretty much that takes care of everything.
Well, and that's two things. That's number one. That's the evangelical concept of prosperity gospel, that people who have wealth and power are basically ordained by God and cannot possibly do wrong.
Oh.
Thank you, Joel Osteen, for that. You piece of shit.
Give
and
back
then
the
of course,
Verizon.
yeah. And the other thing, but it's like it goes back to what I said, I believe last week, where we were talking about using a switchblade. You can't hold somebody to Queensberry rules. I mean, it's like, once again, it's like the Democrats are holding themselves to Queensberry rules while the Republicans are over there. Fuck the switchblade. They brought a howitzer.
To be fair, it's not just the Dems themselves that hold them to these ideas. The fucking media is all too keen, as we've seen this fucking week. Like, let me see. You know, we got fucking Wolf Blitzer trying to plead with, you know, Nancy Pelosi to just take the Republican deal.
Yeah, and of course he's being said by people who don't understand the entire situation because they're not in the room, and that they think that, you know, just accept it because it's just about the total amount of money. Like, all they see is 1.8 billion, and that's all they need to accept. It's not like, okay, how's that trillion, right? That 1.8 trillion. Just accept the 1.8 trillion. What's the big deal? The big deal is how it's spent. The fact that
how much of it will actually benefit people.
Right. How much will it actually benefit real people and not, you know, large corporations and Trump donors? Because, did y'all forget about what happened with the PPP program and how that went down? Look who got the funds off of that program. Yeah, exactly. Nancy Pelosi is going to want to make sure that any deal actually helps people and doesn't help a certain set of people. Just accept the deal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. People are needing of aid. Yeah, we know that. But there's one party that does not care that. What?
You faded out for a second.
I faded out for a second. But it's like, you know, it's like the PPP program helped a certain set of people. Pelosi doesn't want that to happen. And it's like, people are like, well, just take something is better than nothing. It's like, well, if that something doesn't go to actual people, then it is pretty much nothing.
Yeah,
and
like
also, and also, here's another thing.
In fact, it can actually be worse than nothing because it'll make people say, look, we already spent X amount of money on this.
Yes, exactly. Which gets me to my other point, is that the Republican Party is already looking forward to 2021 because they've already gotten into their deficit hawk position that they have over every single Democratic administration. And they're already out there suggesting, well, we don't need to give any more aid because if we give any more aid, people will get lazy with it. Like, there's this quote from Mike Lee in a political story about a call that Senate Republicans had with the White House, pretty much saying "screw any deal." Period. Mike Lee went out there and was quoted as saying that a deal was like if sex was church.
Yeah. So
or something of that nature. So, you know.
Here's the thing: their plan hinges on them retaining the Senate.
Yes.
Guess what? If Trump goes down, they're not retaining the Senate. I'll say it right here because that's not. You know, you don't usually retain Congress in a presidential year if your candidate goes down in flames.
Right. Especially when your candidates and their approvals are directly connected to that president.
Yeah.
Also,
like if you look at candidates, their approval is pretty much the exact same place Trump is at 41, 42, 43.
And I have another interesting question. Did anybody see the fucking debate between McGrath and McConnell?
No.
I saw clips of it and when he was laughing along, and that's the laugh of somebody who is not going to lose. And he won't, because Kentucky.
It's not.
It's the face of a guy who's going to win by 15 points.
It's not really a matter of him personally losing. It's a matter of putting him in the minority position.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And if they lose the Senate, he may lose, if not his seat, any amount of actual power.
Right.
Early. I mean, his position is secured for life once Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, well, he's 80 years old, so his life may be relatively short.
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm not sure if he really wants to be minority leader after having been majority leader.
Oh, he's probably going to retire after this 6-year term, and then he'll be replaced by Daniel Cameron in 2026. So,
yep,
that's the way it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Is it time for us to start packing Kentucky with liberals?
I
Hey,
mean,
we have
why
to-
did
do we have
you
to kidnap-
start
do
that
we have to
already?
kid- Okay,
Better than the
speaking of
current situation
conspiracies,
here.
speaking of conspiracies, do we have to start fucking packing up West Coast elites in crates and shipping them to places and saying fucking live here and vote so we can change the demographic of this place?
I mean, we've done.
I don't know if you do that, then the people who are packing the West Coast with friggin' white ethno-state people might end up having even more of a.
That's the thing. Although, really, that's already been happening in Texas and Georgia. If you think about it.
Hmm.
If you think about it, I mean, Texas and Georgia are in play for a reason this cycle.
Yeah, well, the point I was getting at is it would be less difficult to pack Kentucky than it would be to pack Texas.
Yes, Kentucky is not known for size.
Yeah, I mean, all you got
Indeed.
in terms of big cities is Louisville and Lexington, and that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do something with 2 major cities instead of like 3, 4, 5.
So one of my cats just toppled the cat tree here and tried to take out my entire command center.
Oh
Rest in
boy.
peace.
Sounds like a cat.
Yep.
So yeah. So anyway, conspiracies. My cat is obviously in league with the Republicans trying to take me out.
So, yeah, speaking of conspiracies, I think another sign that Biden is going to win is social media companies are actually starting to take some fucking responsibility against conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, social media and traditional media are suddenly acting like, oh my god, our meal ticket is about to go away.
yeah, because the fucking New York Post pushed out another Burisma, Ukraine, whatever.
Another Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon production.
Yeah. And only the fucking New York Times bit because of fucking MAGA Haberman.
The New York Times
The
or
Times.
the New York Post?
The New York Post posted the story. The New York
Okay.
Times promoted it
Yeah.
by Max Haberman, a.k.a., well, one of the closest people who got access to the president.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And they're still trying to release Hillary's emails. It's like you do realize that you won that. You do realize you won that election, right?
Hillary
That Hillary's
Clinton
not running.
is not on the ballot in 2020.
And they tried to do a Biden email thing today. Like,
That's the New York Post
Oh,
bit.
Lord.
That's what the New York Post thing is.
Does
See,
Biden
I
know
think-
how to send an email? Or does he write everything? Did he write everything on a vice presidential notepad and like fold it up into an airplane and fling it across the office?
I think he does know how to do emails. It's just
Yeah.
I
I'm
think he
being
knows
sarcastic.
I know, but it's like, yeah, it's like
But-
apparently there was an email on a computer given to a computer guy in Wilmington who apparently is a Seth Rich truther, which is nice.
Yeah, but let's be honest here. Let's be honest here. Biden lacks Clinton guile.
yeah.
He's kind of an earnest operator. We kind of know what he's about. We
He's
don't
not
have any
afraid-
mysteries.
He's not afraid to say what he thinks.
Right.
Well, it's also
Whereas the Clintons were all about guile and deceit, counter move, kind of like Romulans.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why we had such a love-hate relationship with the Clintons.
I mean, yeah, they were pretty serious, but at the same time, they brought the Democratic Party back in the 90s, and they were probably more successful than any Republican president in the 21st century.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that in terms of trying to hold secrets or anything like that, I don't think that's Biden's way.
No.
No,
He's in the kind of interesting position that George W. Bush was in 2000. He's the guy that everybody wants to have a beer with.
Pretty
yeah, he's been playing up, the fact that he grew up in Scranton.
That's what he does. That's what he's done with every single thing.
He's Mr. He's Mr. Amtrak.
He's Mr. Amtrak. He's Mr. Blue Collar. He's Mr. I went home on Amtrak every night for my kids because,
But the thing is, that's
I'm
not
a single father.
you know.
You're
That's
making
not
me
his-
want to do the Heat Miser
Whoa,
song, guys.
all right, hold up. We're trampling each other here. Go ahead,
Okay.
Adam.
The thing is, that's not a veneer. That's not a gimmick. That actually is.
By the way, I volunteer for third debate moderator.
If we even
If
have
there is one.
debate,
Yeah, we probably. If NBC was stupid enough to hold a freaking town hall tomorrow night for Trump, then yeah, there's going to be a third debate.
well,
All
keep
right,
in mind.
No, they have to actually. The two of them have to agree to a debate for there to be a debate, and that's not necessarily.
Keep in mind what, Adam? I'm sorry, Adam. What?
It's like, keep in mind the reason why Trump pulled out is because it switched to a virtual debate because he's still fucking contagious. And we know he's still fucking contagious because his son just got the COVID.
Yeah.
Dear.
Yeah.
So
Can we call Child Protective Services, please?
Damn, that means he can't go hunt any more endangered animals for a while.
No,
Not
the
that
young
one.
one.
No, not Don.
Baron.
Baron.
Uh,
yeah,
The
the
good
teenage son.
okay. See, I wanted a perfect opportunity to take a shot at Donnie or Eric.
Yeah, or Don Jr. Yeah, I get you, but yeah, it's Baron. Can we call Child Protective Services on this family, please? I don't
Yeah,
give a damn if
seriously.
he's the president of the United States. He actively sickened his son.
There is. I'm still baffled by the idea that the president can't be held to account for petty crimes. I mean, that's literally just something somebody said. There is no law in the books that says that the president is immune from standard prosecution. There's no fucking law on the books in the Constitution or in the United States Code that says the president cannot be prosecuted for crimes while in office. That is fucking bullshit.
So, Yeah.
Investigation for child neglect.
Yeah.
so the thing is, that is an. I'm trying to remember the office of.
Legal counsel.
General counsel memo.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of presidential arrest, there actually is one on file for petty crime, no less. I think it was Grant who got arrested for traffic violation. Kind of a gentlemanly thing, but it's still it was a minor thing, and it still happened. So there's actually precedent for that. It's just prosecuting the president is one of those great questions, and
it's a grenade nobody wants to jump on.
Right.
It's something you not necessarily want to happen because
I get that, but if Congress abdicates or is physically unable to do its fucking job and remove a criminal president from office,
well, the problem is that the Attorney General is William Barr, and there is no way on God's green earth or any galaxy whatsoever that William Barr is going to prosecute Donald Trump for anything whatsoever.
Yeah, but he doesn't fucking have to. The state attorney general of some other place can bring charges against the president.
For the most part,
non-pardonable crimes.
Yeah, so there's a really good reason you actually don't want this seal to be cracked, because you don't want to hand the Republicans this kind of weapon.
Yeah, you want to talk about not giving the Republicans any ideas.
Yeah, because
can you imagine if Republican state attorneys general had the power to prosecute a Democratic president? They would abuse that in 5 seconds.
It's kind of like with impeachment being a high bar. It's got its problems, but on the other hand, if it were a low bar, then you would have a president that's basically subordinate to the Congress, because the Congress could just remove them. It's it's not a simple answer.
It would be abused.
So,
all right,
I get the desire to prosecute Trump for his crimes, but the thing is, give it 20 days and a few months, and God willing, he'll be prosecuted. Because New York State is got an ongoing investigation right now for tax fraud, bank fraud, probably wire fraud. They're itching to throw him in a fucking prison cell.
Yeah, the Cy Vance Tish James connection is waiting for him.
Yeah, and also to disenfranchise his whole family so that way we can't have a Trump dynasty.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because you've already heard about Junebug wanting to run in Pennsylvania, so let's stop that.
Well, it's like, yeah, they're probably all involved with all the crimes, and the tax returns, kind of alluded to that. Which is stuff that Michael Cohen talked about before Congress. I'm pretty sure that, if Trump loses the election, he and his family and, probably several cohorts, what have you, they're going to prison. It's just, federal, state, does it really matter?
Yeah.
Which is somewhat amusing because usually presidents get pardoned.
Right, but
in this case, I think they might have pissed off enough people that that the next president doesn't actually want to.
Yeah, but they're doing this right. These, as I pointed out before in my initial tirade, these are unpardonable crimes. The president cannot pardon.
For state crimes, right?
For state crimes, that would be up to the governor. I'm pretty sure Andrew Cuomo is going to be like, he's going to be sleeping on that pardon.
Cuomo has, Cuomo just probably hates Trump for all of the fact that he's so antagonistic towards New York City and is like, okay, you don't want to live in New York anymore, huh? All right.
It's like we will remove you from the face of Manhattan permanently. You and your whole criminal fucking family. It's like, we got Gotti, we'll get you.
Right.
And everybody said Gotti was untouchable.
Yeah.
True enough. It's like, here's the thing. Nobody disagrees that a former president can't be hasn't necessarily happened before, but it has happened to a vice president. Like,
Well, Mr. Agnew.
Spiro Agnew pleaded to a bribery charge. The thing is, he was not vice president at that time. He had already resigned.
Yeah,
So,
because of that.
No, that was specifically designed to protect the office of the vice presidency.
I don't know. I just don't know anymore. There's no rhyme or reason to anything. It's like, and people keep talking about law and order, and it's just, no one is held to account for anything anymore. At least once you get above a certain pay grade.
See, that's not what they mean by law and order, though.
No,
obviously.
I'm like,
way to pick up my sarcasm there.
To be rich and white in America.
Right.
It's very Caesarean. That's why it's important to vote to get these people out of power.
Yeah.
Because when you get them out of power, then they can be held accountable. Unfortunately, that's the brain right now. We are the last vanguard.
Pretty much.
Everything else has failed, or it's in regulatory capture, as they call it.
Yeah.
So, but not long, just 20 days.
Yeah.
Going on 19.
Yeah.
I already voted.
Yep.
Lucky.
I already
Plan on
voted.
voting within the next week and a half.
Yeah, I already voted.
Yeah,
I checked today. My vote is as counted as it can be at this point. They don't officially count until election day, but it's there. It's it's been approved.
Okay.
So
been received. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, this will be the first time I've done in-person voting since 1996.
I voted by mail in 16 and 18. I'm doing it in person now.
But I will be goddamned if I'm going to let the state of Arizona disenfranchise me for doing mail-in voting.
The good thing for me is that I possibly might have to vote again in about a month, in about 2 months after November, because runoff. which will be very
For
interesting.
a governor thing, or
Senator, because we have 2 Senate races down here, and probably none of the candidates are going to make 50%. Neither. Of them.
I thought every state had their senators offset.
Well, here we have a crazy situation where we have the Purdue Ossoff race. That's a normal election, and then
and the special election at the same time.
Special election, which is a jungle primary where there's like 25 candidates, and only
the top
2. What?
I said, oh boy.
Yeah, and then the top 2 are going to advance to the runoff, and it looks likely it's going to be between Reverend Raphael Warnock and either a right-wing Trumpkin or Kelly Loeffler, who has gone as far right as you could possibly be to try to combat him, to the point where she's running as saying that she's more conservative than Attila the Hun.
Which doesn't even make sense.
And also,
I'm pretty sure Attila would have been branded a radical.
watch the ads about this. Trust me, you're gonna go, what the hell?
I don't think I'm on enough painkillers for
and
that.
Obviously, Jesus was a conservative Republican as well.
Yeah. That's the point. Tomorrow, by the way, said Miss Loeffler is going to be appearing right here in the very county that I'm speaking to you from, to be endorsed by Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I come to you from Greenland, if you will. Yes.
Honestly, I think I would rather live in actual Greenland.
Yes. Trust me.
Tell Phil Hartman I said hello. That's a sergeant. That's a very old '90s Sergeant Bilko reference. Just forget it.
And for the record, I'm going to be making the ultimate protest vote and voting for her Democratic candidate that she kind of drove out of the race because it led to because he had domestic problems and he had to move out of the state. Past the deadline for any replacement. So he's still on the ballot. I'm going to bubble him in, and it doesn't matter that I'm wasting my vote on him. It's the ultimate protest vote in that election.
So, if elected, will not even serve.
Correct. Pretty much a protest vote for me. Because it's better than leaving it blank, and there's nobody else that can be written in because it was too late past the deadline for that. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vote Bernie. Even though he's not even there.
In your dreams.
I do like how Bernie is largely irrelevant now.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
He's behaving like someone who might get a chairmanship next year.
Yeah.
What a good boy.
maybe.
Well, I mean, say what you will about him, but he does at least seem to, like, be an actual politician and understand how fucking things work. And, like, if you can't win, like, there's still stuff you can do.
Well, again, the reason why he's doing it now is because of the fact that, well, it would kind of be bad if he was doing it during a pandemic, number one. And number two, if the Democrats get the Senate, he gets the chairmanship of, I think it's the Finance Committee? One of those committees? And yeah,
that would be his dream job.
Yes. Yes.
Oh God.
We're going to tax the billionaires.
Yeah. He wants to be a good little boy so he can get his promotion. Yes, that's what he's doing.
That'll mean he'll be able to attach his name to the front and center of bills involving things that he actually cares about.
Yeah, well, that's why he's being what he is, because he wants to be a good boy.
I still worry though. I still worry because, you know, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook, on various social medias, I'm still watching my minority friends talking about Biden earning their vote, and I'm like, this is not the fucking time for that.
Indeed.
Social
this
media
is not the fucking time for that. It's not what?
Yeah, let me make it plain and simple. Social media is not real life. If social media was real life, Bernie would be the nominee and not Biden.
That's true.
Being said, there are concerning trends about, you know, non-white youth voters being more conservative than their parents, but you know that could be a generational thing that goes.
I've heard a lot of Zoomers in my car that I've had to keep quiet in front of because some of the stuff that they said, and it's the same thing. That this would be the only question I would ever ask Donald Trump. Well, what makes you think that? Like it's like well, what actual evidence makes you think that? No other questions. Just I'm going to keep repeating. What makes you think that? Oh, okay. And what makes you think that? And what makes you think that?
I got a good brain.
Yeah, it's like
I have all the best things.
Yeah,
Man, I think you're losing at one of the point where you like start having him like actually think.
Yeah.
He doesn't
all
think,
I
he
can say is
just
that I
has
got a good
ideas.
brain. I know things.
It's like the youth of this nation seems to have bought into a notion that, and this goes back to my prosperity gospel concept, is that once again, well, if you're a billionaire, obviously you have God's favor. If you're a billionaire, you're beyond reproach because God doesn't reward people who are wicked. And it's like, well, actually, God has nothing to fucking do with it. And in fact, they've done studies on this. Yeah, they've done studies on this to where they say that in order to become a billionaire, you really have to have a sociopathic tendency to be able to compartmentalize and hold two completely disparate ideas. Like you've got the idea that conservatives believe in, leading to selfishness, and then you've got the idea that liberals believe in, and you pick whichever one suits your goals best, regardless of your personal belief. Like you put your personal beliefs aside and say, this is the one that's going to make me money.
Right. Or
something eye of needle, something gates of heaven.
Or to put it succinctly, there are no good billionaires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow, strife and I can't think of the word that I want to use here. I'm having a moment here.
Okay. Fury?
Exploitation.
Yeah.
Somehow strife and exploitation comes into play in the case of virtually every billionaire. In order to make that kind of money. No matter like when you look at Jeff Bezos, for example, and you say to yourself, well, he gives to charity and he pays his workers more than most. And it's like, but it's still problematic because he still pays less than what they're worth.
Right, he gives a tiny amount of his relative massive worth to charity. And so, yeah, sure, he could also, if he wanted to, he could fucking buy a house for everyone in insert town here.
Yeah.
Or state.
Yeah, depending on size of...
Or Uganda.
The whole evils of man and capitalism thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like we have to really break this, and it's like when we talked about corruption in government, and last week when I mentioned Betsy DeVos, and we started talking about it, I said if you really don't want to know what the Trump administration and their ilk are about, then you look no further than the Secretary of Education, because she is actually the most dangerous person in America right now, because she controls the one thing that shapes people's minds. The media doesn't do that because our education system informs how people parse the media. And if the education system is a bunch of cookie cutter tests and a bunch of claptrap, like, Native Americans were asked politely to move to the reservations to make room for the white settlers.
And slavery never happened.
Right. Thank you, McMillan and Houghton Mifflin.
Texas, mostly.
Yeah, well, almost all the textbooks in this country come out of a what is it, a duopoly of companies out of Texas?
Yeah.
Yes, and I think there's also something to bit like where like every school in Texas or practically has agreed to use the exact same textbooks or something, and therefore they have like a controlling interest in exact same textbook, and
Right.
therefore it's easier for other people to just use that one rather than like try to get a slightly different one made.
And so we are still in, and I swear to God, we need to adopt this as the U.S. history textbook in every classroom in the United States of America. We are still in the three-tiered economic system described in A People's History of the United States. Rich white landowners, all the other whites, and everybody else. And those three groups are pitted against each other in brilliant fashion and have been for almost 200 years. And they lay it out so succinctly in the book, and nobody gets it. They're like, "Oh, well, you don't understand my strife." And you go, "Well, yeah, okay." There was it's like there are groups that had unique struggles in all of this. There's no way that I can say this without spending an hour delineating, the 14-point root tree of everybody's strife in this country, from the human chattel of African Americans to the treatment of Chinese American immigrants and Italian Americans, and on and on and on. We're not going to do that. We don't have time for that.
Lyndon Johnson gave this game away by saying, like, all you got to do is convince the white man that the black man is getting more than him, and they'll be on your side. Not the exact language, but it's
if you can convince the poorest white man that he is better off than the best black man, then you have succeeded, is essentially what he said. But I believe he also said that sarcastically as he was losing the South to the civil rights movement.
I'm like, I don't, sarcastic or not, it's shit.
He was basically pointing out the conservative strategy.
Actually, I think the better representation of that is what Lee Atwater said about, you could say N-word, 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 but, after a while it doesn't work, so then you start saying taxes and states' rights and everything else. Then all of a sudden it's more successful.
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Also, on the economic level, there's a lot of people, I forget what the exact quote is, but there's something about like the people who make millions of dollars or whatever and don't even have to work for it, convincing the people that make two figures that the people that make, or the people that make like five figures, and people who make only like four figures are convincing them that the other one is taking their money.
But back to my point is, once again, we are living in this three-tier system, and we have never left this three-tier system. It is not more nuanced than that. Everybody thinks it is because they like to obfuscate the truth, and that's a failing of the media, or perhaps the media is in collusion with the whole thing. I don't fucking know. I'm not going to sit here and throw out Trumpisms on to try to explain this situation. The bottom line,
a complicity. It could be an implicity.
Well, there's that too. I mean, ultimately, the media's job now is no longer to present journalism. The media's job is to make ratings and get profit for their taskmasters.
Yeah, that's been the case since at least
since the Fairness Doctrine. Yeah, since the Fairness Doctrine was repealed.
The Fairness Doctrine went down in the late 80s, but it really wasn't until like the mid 90s when you had the Telecom Act in 96 and you had massive consolidation.
Right, but that's a ripple. But that's a ripple effect. That's a ripple effect. That's a ripple. Well, starting from that one stone thrown into the pond.
Yeah, I don't think that the stone into the pond is the thing that happened. It's more the ripple effect, because, I mean, they took down the Fairness Doctrine and really nothing really much happened, and then all of a sudden it became eager to everybody to gobble up more and more and more, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we want to protect this monopoly we have. Let's
do there's also the repeal of Glass-Steagall.
That helped too.
The weakening of the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So like I said, circling back to the beginning of my point, though, the most dangerous person in America is not William Barr. It's not Mike Pompeo. It's not even Donald Trump or Mike Pence. It's Betsy DeVos, because she controls the purse strings now for education. And education is where we are fucking up royally in America, and have been for about 40 years now. We have been, and that's not a accidental thing. That's not a neglect thing. That's a deliberate act They are deliberately dumbing America so that way we believe false narratives and are unable to parse cognitive dissonance. There's no critical thinking taught in our education system. And if, God forbid, you somehow magically make it into college and actually get a professor who challenges you to think, holy shit, your mind goes into a tailspin. Because everything you know is wrong. Everything you know is wrong.
Yeah, because all of a sudden it's like, wait, white people haven't been good, decent people forever. There's been genocides, there's been massacres, there's been all of this.
Christopher Columbus wasn't a great Italian American. No, he was not. That was a political move. That was a political move. No, of course not.
Yeah.
That was a political move by President Harrison because of a lynching in 1891.
I remember my Latin American history teacher in college exploding about Columbus more than once. For obvious reasons.
Unbelievable. And if I haven't plugged this often enough, another great reference that uses a people's history of the United States is John Leguizamo's Latin History for Complete Morons, I believe is the title of the performance piece. It's funny and enlightening and terrifying all at the same time, and I believe those were the three notes he was going for. And it's just absolutely amazing because I remember taking AP US History in 1993-94, and it actually covered this stuff because Southern California boy, above average intelligence. I got into the AP and the International Baccalaureate program, and I got to tell you, when Mark Twain opined that travel cures racism, he wasn't fucking around. I mean, if you want to expand it to say travel cures ignorance, that's a no bullshit statement right there, because I didn't actually physically travel, but I got a world tour thanks to IB World Cultures, IB World History, and AP US History. And I got to tell you, it rocked my fucking world. It took the foundation out from everything I thought I believed up until age 15.
I had really good history books growing up, because I never thought the South were the good guys. I didn't encounter like that until high school, and I never agreed with.
Yeah, and I got
was
lucky.
raised north of the Mason-Dixon line, so I never thought the South were the good guys. But
I mean, once again, I was a Southern California boy, so California, even in San Diego, which is a little on the purple side of things, was
pretty bit conservative for a while until recently.
I was being sarcastic.
I know.
but as far as that goes, I think I got a pretty unvarnished history. I had a kid in my car who had never heard of Teapot Dome or Warren G. Harding's, his mysterious death in office 5 minutes before he was about to be impeached by one of the largest landslides in U.S. history. He would have been impeached and removed from office by one of the widest margins in Senate history. And mysteriously, he just up and died. And the controversy around that survives to this day. And this kid had never heard of that. He said, "Well, I've never even heard of Teapot Dome or Tammany Hall or the robber barons of the last century." And I was just like, "Kid, you got a lot to look up."
Also, to be clear, I'm not saying that like my education was better because I did that. I had to spend a lot of time, actually, comparatively recently, reevaluating opinions on a lot of Northern American stuff and politics. And oh boy, let me tell you, when you grow up in New England, you hear a lot of good stuff about like the Pilgrims and shit. And
I got a bad vibe off of them when they said when the teacher said, yeah, they came to America to flee religious persecution.
True, technically.
Well, yeah, they kind of did, but
yes, it was for not being Catholic, but also it was for being like kind of extreme about their their religious beliefs. And also, they very much did not come to America to seek for religious freedom. They came to America to seek for a place where there was no one telling them they couldn't make their religion the only acceptable one.
Yes.
Yeah, they wanted the freedom to persecute anybody they wanted.
Right, without being persecuted in return.
And that is a philosophy that lives on to this day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that brings us to the 1 hour mark. Does anybody have any summation remarks that they'd like to make before we sign off for the week?
Just vote, and vote.
Yeah.
Preferably vote once. We don't want people going to jail.
Right.
And we never got a chance to say that ABC is part of a Catholic cult.
Or ACB, yeah. But yeah.
Or ACB, yeah.
I don't know why you need to fucking say it. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
also, I'd also like to state for the record that I don't think she deserves or is allowed to have a cute 3 initial affectation like Ruth Bader Ginsburg did until she actually earns it.
Yeah,
and has been on the court for a few decades, got some good precedents under her belt. They weren't calling her the notorious RBG 10 years ago, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
I don't know. She sounds like a dumbass, but that's a conversation for another time.
She sounds like someone who's guaranteed a job.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, my cats are howling, so be sure to tune in next week for more chaos and mayhem, and not necessarily in that order. I'm Mac Paladin on behalf of the crew at Last Newsdesk on the left, saying thanks for listening and stay safe out there, kids. Hit like and subscribe. God damn it. We'll see you next week.